Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
But now I want to get to my friend, Adam Brandon. Adam, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. I can hear you. I'm not a producer, but I can hear you, Steve.
Okay, great. Fantastic. So Adam Brandon was the president for many years of FreedomWorks, and he and I worked together for 6 or 7 or 8 years and did an amazing job running FreedomWorks. And now he runs a new group that just started about a year ago called The Independent. And he's been providing me with really fascinating information about how independent voters think and how they vote and how they process information, and how we as free market conservatives can win independents over to our side. Now, Adam, you were telling me when we talked a week or so.
You don't have to win them over.
Yeah.
Already won over. That was one of the great revelations that we had, is that when I was looking at the data, your independent voters are more fiscally conservative than your base Republican voters.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
They want smaller government.
70. Okay, so all this talk about spending, what I think the big difference here is that this is really a millennial, and millennials, let's just say these are your 30 and 40-year-olds right now. Yep. They know they're going to get the bill for all the spending.
So they get the jokes on them. Yeah.
And so they're very angry at the boomers because they think the boomers are talking a big game about spending, but look at the budgets right now. They're going up. They're not going down. We're not touching entitlements. We're not touching healthcare. We're not touching any of the things that are driving the spending. But I always quote this statistic, Steve, 76% of millennials want to modernize Social Security. It's not a third rail for the next generation.
Wow. So they understand that it's a ripoff and that it's running out of money. And so they want the reforms in the program.
What they know is they're going to pay more taxes to support boomers in retirement, and then they're not going to see a dime of it from themselves.
Yeah. Now,
so
be careful,
they
Adam.
want answers.
I know, but Adam, be careful here because I'm a boomer. So, and by the way, I was born in 1960, which was the peak year in births. And so it is true. We have kind of inverted pyramid. And now what we have is like basically 2 workers for every retired person. And that is the burden of these millennials, right? And is it the Gen X, Gen Z? I can't keep these generations straight.
Yep. Well, my parents are in their mid 80s. They're at the point in life where you can't take Social Security and Medicare away from them. They can't live without it, but we need to start having an intergenerational conversation on what these systems need to look like. So you can take care of current retirees, but younger retirees, you need to transition them to a system that's going to work for them to help them save for retirement and not leave the future generations a crushing burden. I look at this approaching $40 trillion in debt. This is a moral issue for me.
Yes,
it is not moral to leave future generations this much debt because we can't get our act together today. And so that's one of the reasons I just threw my hands up and I've decided to go independent so I could start putting the issues first, ahead of partisan politics.
One of the things you were telling me, Adam, was that, and this surprised me, that the number one party in America today is not Republican or Democrat, but independent.
Both parties, Republican and Democrat, are now under 25% of the population.
Wow, that's amazing.
Falling.
Why is that? Why is that?
Well, the best we could come up with is if you look at the huge break, it comes when you start experiencing the internet. And so younger generations, let's say these youngers, I'm meaning people who are 40 today, spent their whole life growing up on the internet. This is a generation that's used to 50 different types of peanut butter, not 2 parties. So when you try, not 3 networks, they're used to a million different news sources. So to them, it's like, look, this is a group that tends to be more liberal on social issues. So they identify with Democrats on more liberal issues. But on economics, they identify more with Republicans and the right. And they're like, well, why can't we just mix some of these two together? And that's what your independents look like today.
So you're talking about young people, but what about people in their 40s and 50s that are independent?
That's young. That's what I'm calling young.
Okay.
That's now, after this last election. Last election was the last time that baby boomers were the plurality of the electorate. For the next 20 years, millennials will be the plurality of the electorate. They're the largest demographic out today. So when you look at all these problems, from immigration to energy policy, it will be millennial voters who decide what happens here. And that's why I decided I'm at the point in my career, I'd rather work with that group that's going to be determining the future.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay, courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos Remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See RemixYogurt.com.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, cause Clear the Rack is on at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through Monday, find incredible deals on Wear Now styles. On sale for even less at Nordstrom Rack. Take an extra 25% off red tag clearance throughout the store from brands like Free People, Steve Madden, Vince, and more. All sales final. The best stuff goes fast. So shop this sale at Nordstrom Rack today. Please see NordstromRack.com or ask a store associate for details.
So how did Donald Trump do with these independent voters?
Well, he won them in 2016. Biden won them. And by the way, when they first came in, they voted for Obama. Then they ended up voting for Trump. Then they ended up voting for Biden. And in this last election, they slightly broke for Trump again. That's the point. They go back and forth. And I think what happens is people think that they're going to be permanently Democrat or permanent Republican. They're permanently independent. When it's so good for people like you, Steve, and me, they actually are putting issues first before partisan politics. So they want to hear what you're going to do about debt and deficit. They don't like the tariffs. They want to hear what you're doing about cost of living. They want to hear what you're doing on all. They're concerned about energy. They're all those issues that I know you hold dear. The same. This is the demographic that is worrying about those same things.
I'm talking to Adam Brandon, who is the new president of a new exciting group called The Independent, which is really trying to reach the Independent Center.
Independent Center. Yep.
Right. And so this is, can people go to, do you have a website? Is it independentcenter.com or?
Yep. The website's been live, but just about a half hour ago, the Washington Post, if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, we will be in the Sunday Washington Post print edition. But we're live right now, and it's kind of talking about not only our issues, but our political strategy. So I guess we're public now, Steve. But
fantastic.
I'm a big reader of the hotline, and if anyone who's listening is not on the hotline, please go and subscribe. I think
thank you for great work. I've been trying to get our listeners to join. It's free, folks. So just go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up for that. Thank you, Adam, for that free advertising.
If you only have 3 minutes to get the news, I think, and what I also like is the facts and graphs. And I do notice every once in a while when I send something to you, sometimes I see it pop up over there. So I'm glad you're seeing some of it. But I will say, you talked about this election in Britain with Nigel Farage recently, and it hasn't been covered here enough. But what Farage did was hasn't happened in over 100 years in Britain, where people are leaving the two parties in Britain.
Right.
And I always point out, you had Thatcher before you had Reagan. Tony Blair started the third way before Clinton. You had Brexit before you had Trump. And frankly, you had Liz Truss before you had Kevin McCarthy, right? The analogies keep coming. And the fact that you saw this huge reform movement spread and win. And then I know for a fact, I know of 3 people who are running as independents for Senate. I know just this morning I read that a Democrat has dropped out of being a Democrat in Florida, is now running as an independent for governor. All of a sudden, your listeners are going to start hearing, what is this independent stuff? It is going to be everywhere. And I think 2026 is going to be the rise of the independents politically.
So we just have a minute and a half left, Adam, just very quickly. So do you see the independent movement becoming it's not really a party. It's just so in other words, do you see this movement becoming a political party, or do you see it taking over either the Republican or the Democratic Party? How do you see this evolving?
I think it's, when I study change, you look at the abolitionist movement, you look at the civil rights movement, you look at suffragette movement. They were movements. And then they did have a political effect, because my goal here is not to just affect the Republican Party or affect the Democratic Party. I'd like to affect all parties right now. And I think, look, we're, in a very serious note, we're heading to a fiscal crisis. I think you know it. We all know it. Until we get this debt deficit under control. But we're going to need everyone. We're going to need older Americans, younger Americans, Democrats, Republicans, even Pittsburgh Steelers fans are welcome to join this effort.
Well,
and as a Cleveland Browns fan, that's hard for me. But I think we're going to need to have everyone on board to realize we've got to solve this, and it's not all bad news, but it's going to have to do things differently. We're going to have to relook at how we're working our federal government.
Well, the one thing I think that's very timely, and the reason I wanted to have you on, and I appreciate you coming on, Adam Brandon, who runs the Independent Center, is that Republicans are flinching from making some of these tough cuts that voters voted for.
Yeah, correct. And I think they're missing out on understanding. I think people, particularly in some of these swing districts, again, I come back to, they're watching the wrong demographics. The younger demographics want bold change. There's a reason why it's not strange to me that a lot of these voters will vote for Trump and also vote for Bernie Sanders. There's something of the outsider that is appealing to them, but they haven't completely solidified what their value system is. But again, I tell you, if you're a classical liberal, this is like, and it's such a terrible phrase to use, and it's like, your traditional, fiscal conservative. That is the type of politics this group likes, but they just don't want to be forced to join a party.
There you go. Well, I love what you're doing, Adam Brandon, from the Independent Center, folks. This is the More Money Show, and we will be right back.